Welcome to the online class. Hello everyone, how are you? I think you all are keeping well by the grace of Almighty Allah. I am also fine. This is Hasina Islam, lecturer, Department of English, Tongi Government College, Gazipur. This lecture is for the students of Honors Second Year. Dear learners, today we are going to start a new poem. We have started John Keats, and from John Keats we have completed three poems. Today we are going to start Keats' another poem, Ode to a Nightingale. So, first of all, I would like to give you some important information regarding this poem. Then we will enjoy the poem, and you have to listen to this poem very carefully. So let's start. So this is about the poem. Ode to a Nightingale is a poem by John Keats, written either in the garden of the Spenders in Hampstead, London, or according to Keats' friend Charles Armitage Brown, under a palm tree in the garden of Keats' house at Wentworth Place, also in Hampstead. According to Brown, a nightingale had built its nest near the house that he shared with Keats in the spring of 1819. That is, John Keats and his friend, they lived in the same house, and once his friend found that a nightingale built its nest in the tree, and Keats was inspired with this song, and it was in 1819. So inspired by birdsong, Keats composed the poem in one day. That is, it took only a day to complete this poem. It soon became one of his 1819 odes. So he wrote so many odes, and it is one of the finest ode, and was first published in Annals of the Fine Arts the following July. The poem is one of the most frequently authorized in the English language. So now we are going to enjoy this poem, and of course you have to listen to this poem very carefully, and I think you have the books. You can take help from your textbook. Okay, so with the help of textbook and by listening this poem very carefully, you can enrich your vocabulary. You can also enrich your pronunciation. So let's start.
My heart aches and drowsy numbness pains my senses, though of hemlock I had drunk, or emptied some dull opiate to the drains 1 minute past and Leithwoods had sunk. 'Tis not through envy of thy happy lot, but being too happy in thine happiness, that thou, light-winged dryad of the trees, in some melodious plot of beech and green, and shadows numberless, singest of summer in full-throated ease. Oh, for a draught of vintage, that hath been cooled a long age in the deep-delved earth, tasting of flora and the country green, dance and provincial song and sunburnt mirth. Oh, for a beaker of the warm south, full of the true, the blushful hippocrene, with beaded bubbles winking at the brim and purple-stained mouth, that I might drink and leave the world unseen, and with thee fade away into the forest dim. Fade far away, dissolve, and quite forget what thou amongst the leaves hast never known. The weariness, the fever, and the fret here, where men sit and hear each other groan, where palsy shakes a few sad last grey hairs, where youth grows pale and spectre thin and dies, where but to think is to be full of sorrow and leaden-eyed despairs, where beauty cannot keep her lustre posy, though the dull brain perplexes and retards. Already with thee, tender is the night, and happily the queen moon is on her throne, clustered round by all her starry fays. But here there is no light, save what from heaven is with the breezes blown through verdurous glooms and winding mossy ways. I cannot see what flowers are at my feet, nor what soft incense hangs upon the boughs, but in embalmed darkness guess each sweet wherewith the seasonable month endows the grass, the thicket, and the fruit tree wild. White hawthorn and the pastoral eglantine, fast fading violets covered up in leaves, and mid-May's eldest child, the coming musk rose, full of dewy wine, the murmurous haunt of flies on summer eves. Darkling I listen, and for many a time I have been half in love with easeful death, called him soft names in many a mused rhyme, to take into the air my quiet breath. Now more than ever seems it rich to die, to cease upon the midnight with no pain, while thou art pouring forth thy soul abroad in such an ecstasy. Still wouldst thou sing, and I have ears in vain, to thy high requiem become a sod. Thou wast not born for death, immortal bird. No hungry generations tread thee down. The voice I hear this passing night was heard in ancient days by emperor and clown. Perhaps the selfsame song that found a path through the sad heart of Ruth, when sick for home she stood in tears amid the alien corn. The same that oft times hath charmed magic casements, opening on the foam of perilous seas in fairy lands forlorn. Forlorn. The very word is like a bell to toll me back from thee to my soul's self. Adieu. The fancy cannot cheat so well as she is fain to do, deceiving elf. Adieu, adieu. Thy plaintive anthem fades past the near meadows, over the still stream, up the hillside, and now 'tis buried deep in the next valley glades. Was it a vision or a waking dream? Fled is that music. Do I wake or sleep?
So, dear students, I think you have enjoyed this poem. You have to listen to this poem again and again, okay? Then you can enrich your pronunciation. So now I am going to give you more information regarding this poem. Ode to a Nightingale is a personal poem which describes Keats' journey into the state of negative capability. So this word negative capability, it fits for John Keats, and of course you have to know what is negative capability. That is to keep himself aloof from the writing. So this is a personal poem. The tone of this poem rejects the optimistic pursuit of pleasure found within Keats' earlier poems, and instead explores the themes of nature, transience, and morality, the latter being particularly relevant to Keats. Actually, in Keats' earlier poems, we find an optimistic tone, but here we find a mixture. Okay. So the Nightingale described experiences a type of death, but does not actually die. Actually, it expresses a idea of death, but actually not die. Instead, the songbird is capable of living through its song, which is a fate that human cannot expect. Actually, human being cannot expect in this type of fate he is describing here. The poem ends with an acceptance that pleasure cannot last and that death is an inevitable part of life. Actually, we human beings cannot escape death. We have to face the death because it is the part of life. In the poem, Keats imagines that loss of the physical world and sees himself dead as a sword, over which the nightingale sings. The contrast between the immortal nightingale and mortal man sitting in his garden is made all the more acute by an effort of the imagination. So this is a deep imagination which takes us to the world of nightingale. Okay, so the presence of weather is noticeable in the poem as spring came early in 1819, bringing nightingales all over the head. So when this poem was written, it was time of spring, and at that time Keats heard this song, listened to this song, and he composed this poem. So this is all about this poem, and in my next lecture I will give you more information regarding this poem, the summary, theme, and other necessary thing you are in need of, that is those you need for your exam. Also some question and important short short questions and answer I will try to give in the next lecture. Okay, so till then everyone, have a nice day and thank you.